The roar of engines echoed through the small mountain town of Cedar Hollow, a sleepy place where time seemed to have forgotten to move. The sun hung low, painting the cracked road in shades of amber and rust, and the distant hum of Harley-Davidsons rolled like thunder across the valley. To most people, the sight of the Iron Hawks Motorcycle Club cruising down the narrow main street was enough to make them cross to the other side. Leather jackets, tattoos, long beards, and cold eyes. They looked like trouble, but no one knew that day would test every assumption the town had ever made about them. It started with a sound so small, yet piercing enough to silence the world, the desperate cry of a child. "Please help! Somebody help my mama!" Her voice trembled through the air, cracking with fear and exhaustion. The bikers had just pulled over by the diner for their usual coffee break when the little girl came running barefoot across the dusty street. Her dress was torn, her hair tangled with leaves, and her cheeks streaked with tears and dirt. She couldn't have been more than 7. Her tiny hands clutched the hem of her dress as if trying to hold herself together. If this story already has your heart racing, make sure to hit that Lucky button. Drop a Shamumti and subscribe to Soul Spark, because what happens next will move you more than you can imagine. The leader of the Iron Hawks, a broad-shouldered man known as Tank, turned first. Beneath his dark sunglasses, his eyes softened the instant he saw her. "Hey there, kid," he said, kneeling down. "What happened? Who's hurt? They're beating my mama?" She sobbed, her small chest heaving. "Please, they're gonna hurt her real bad." The bikers exchanged quick glances. Without another word, Tank stood and barked orders. "Roadblock, mount up." Engines roared to life again, echoing through the valley like war drums. The girl pointed shakily toward a dirt road cutting into the woods behind the gas station. Without hesitation, they followed her lead, dust and gravel flying under their tires as the sun dipped behind the hills. The road twisted through the trees until they reached a small, rundown trailer at the edge of the woods. From inside came the unmistakable sounds of shouting and crashing, a man's angry roar and a woman's muffled screams. Tank cut his engine and motioned for silence. The bikers fanned out, eyes burning with fury. Tank stepped forward and pounded on the door. "Open up." No answer. Then another scream. Tank didn't wait. One swift kick, and the flimsy door splintered inward. Inside, the scene froze every biker in his tracks. A woman in her late 20s cowered in a corner, blood on her lip, arms raised to shield herself. Standing over her was a man twice her size, his fists clenched, his face red with rage. He spun toward the bikers, furious and startled. "Who the hell are you people?" Tank didn't answer with words. He grabbed the man by his collar and slammed him against the wall so hard the wood cracked. "You lay another hand on her," Tank growled, his voice low and dangerous, "or you'll wish the cops got to you first." The man tried to struggle, but the others stepped in, 6 against 1. They didn't beat him, they didn't have to. The look in their eyes was enough. Fear replaced fury. Within minutes, the man was outside on the ground, waiting for the police. Tank had already radioed from his headset. The woman, trembling, looked up as Tank knelt beside her. "You okay, ma'am?" She nodded weakly, clutching her little girl who ran to her arms sobbing. "Thank you," she whispered. "I thought no one would come." Tank exhaled slowly. "No one hurts a woman or a kid in our town," he said quietly. "Not while we're around." The bikers helped clean up the trailer, patched the broken door, and waited until the sheriff arrived. When he did, even he was surprised. "Never thought I'd see the Iron Hawks playing heroes," he said under his breath. Tank just shrugged. "Wiss you don't know us as well as you think, but that was just the beginning." Over the next few days, word spread about what happened. The little girl's name was Lily, and her mother's name was Sarah. They had come to Cedar Hollow to escape an abusive past, hoping for a fresh start. But the man who hurt her, Sarah's ex, had tracked them down. For months, she'd lived in fear, working double shifts at the diner to feed her child, never telling anyone the truth. The bikers didn't just rescue them that day, they refused to leave them alone afterward. Tank and his crew took turns guarding their trailer until it was safe. They repaired Sarah's broken window, brought food, and made sure the man stayed locked up for good. The townsfolk began to notice. The same people who once crossed the street when the Iron Hawks rode by now greeted them with nods and grateful smiles. Sarah, still shaken but slowly healing, invited the group to dinner one evening as thanks. She cooked spaghetti, her hands trembling as she stirred the sauce, unsure if they'd even come. But they did, every single one. Leather jackets, tattoos, rough hands, and the gentlest hearts she'd ever seen. Lily sat on Tank's lap that night, wearing one of his oversized sunglasses, giggling as the bikers taught her to make vroom sounds with her mouth. It was the first time she'd laughed in months. As the night went on, Tank looked around the small trailer, the warm light flickering over everyone's faces, and he felt something shift inside him. He'd spent years trying to outrun the ghosts of his past. A broken home, a childhood filled with the same kind of violence he saw that day. Maybe, he thought, this was why fate brought him to Cedar Hollow. From that day forward, the Iron Hawks weren't just a motorcycle club. They became protectors of the town. They fixed fences for widows, helped rebuild burned barns, and even started a charity ride for victims of domestic abuse. The name that once struck fear became a symbol of safety. And every year on the anniversary of that day, they held a ride called Lily's Run, with Sarah and Lily at the front, waving proudly from the back of Tank's Harley. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a second to like this video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Soul Spark. It truly helps us share more stories that inspire and heal. Years later, when Lily turned 18, she stood on the small stage in front of hundreds of riders during the annual Lily's Run. The wind carried her voice softly, but strong. "I don't remember much about that day," she said, tears glimmering in her eyes, "but I'll never forget the sound of those engines. I used to be scared of motorcycles. Now to me they sound like angels coming to the rescue." Tank, now grayer, stood in the front row with pride glistening behind his sunglasses. He wasn't a man of many words, but as Lily hugged him tightly, he whispered, "You were brave first, kid. We just followed your lead." The crowd erupted in applause, and as the engine started once more, their deep rumble filled the air, not as noise, but as a promise. A promise that even in a world that sometimes feels cruel and divided, goodness still rides strong, in leather, steel, and hearts that refuse to turn away from a cry for help. That day, as the sun dipped behind the hills again, Tank looked toward the horizon, the same road where it all began, and smiled. The Iron Hawks weren't just bikers anymore. They were a family. And in saving one little girl and her mother, they had unknowingly saved themselves too. Because sometimes heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they wear leather jackets, ride roaring machines, and answer the cries no one else dares to hear.